Poem The Pobble Who Has No Toes. Assalamu alaikum students, and a very good morning. In today's recorded lesson, we are going to start with the poem The Pobble Who Has No Toes. The poem The Pobble Who Has No Toes. It's on page number 81 of your textbook. In this recorded video, we are going to read about the detailed summary of this poem with the line-by-line explanation. Before starting with the poem explanation, let me just clear you with the word what is meant by pobble. Well, pobble is a noun for people, population, folk. Means log. Let us firstly see about the poet, the one who has written this poem. Edward Lear was the poet who wrote this poem. He was born in England in 1812 and he died in Italy in 1886. He wrote many nonsense poems and limericks which had been delighted children and adults over the past 100 years. The Pobble Who Has No Toes is a nonsense poem. Means something that is spoken or written that has no meaning or make no sense. You can say something that is so foolish or unacceptable. Lear's poem often contains words that are made up. He changed words around to suit his purpose. In this poem, you will find many nonsense expressions, such as fish fiddle-dee-dee and tinkledy-blinkledy winkled. Now let's begin with our video. The poem The Pobble Who Has No Toes. Basically, this poem is a short poem by Edward Lear. The summary of the poem is that the pobble failed to keep his nose warm and loses his toes, which is what his mother told him will happen. This poem basically reveals how the pobble come to lose his toes and what happened afterwards. Now, let's begin with the detailed summary of this poem, The Pobble Who Has No Toes. The poem, The Pobble Who Has No Toes, is initially introduced. The pobble who has no toes had once as many as we. When they said, "Someday you may lose them all," he replied, "Fish fiddle-dee-dee." As the story continues, it described that the Pobble adventures throughout England and his desire to swim the Bristol Channel. His aunt, Jabelska, tells us that as long as he cared for his nose, he need not worry about his toes. However, although he had wrapped his nose in a piece of scarlet flannel, a porpoise carried the flannel piece away, and when he checked, his toes were gone. Whether the shrimps or crawfish gray, a crafty mermaid stole them away. Nobody knew, and nobody knows, how the Pobble was robbed of his twice 5 toes. Upon his return to his aunt's home, she is seen bringing him breakfast in a garden. As she says, it's a fact the whole world knows that Pobbles are happier without their toes. Now, let's begin reading of this poem, The Pobble Who Has No Toes. Had once many as we. When they said, someday you may lose 'em all, he replied, fish fiddle dee dee. And his aunt, Jobiska, made him drink lavender water tinged with pink, for she said the world in journals know there's nothing so good for a Pobble's toe. The Pobble, who has no toes, swam across the Bristol Channel, but before he set out, he wrapped his nose in a piece of scarlet flannel, for his aunt Jobiska said no harm can come to his toes if his nose is warm, and it's perfectly known that a Pobble's toes are safe provided he'd mind his nose. The Pobble swam fast and well, and when boats or ship came near him, he'd twinkledy blinkledy winkle a bell, so that all the world could hear him, and all the sailors and admirals cried when they saw him nearing the further side. He had gone to fish for his aunt Jobiska. Runcible cat with crimson whisker. But before he touched the shore of the Bristol Channel, a sea-green porpoise carried away his wrap and scarlet flannel, and then he came to observe his feet, firmly garnished with toes so neat. His face at once became fallen on perceiving that all his toes were gone. And nobody ever knew, from that dark day to the present, whose had taken the purple toes, and manner so far from pleasant, whether the shrimp or the crawfish grey, or crafty marmots stolen them away. Nobody knew and nobody knows how the purple was robbed of twice 5 toes. The Pobble who has no toes was flayed in a friendly bark, and they rode him back and carried him up to his aunt Jabezka Park, and she made him a feast at his earnest wish of eggs and buttercups fried with fish. And she said, "It's the fact the whole world knows that Pobbles are happier without their toes." I hope that you have enjoyed the reading and the whole poem explanation and analysis is clear to you. Now, let's conclude the poem from the beginning to the end. So, here is the summary for you. Let's start it. In the beginning, the poet introduced us to a young Pobble who was very proud of his toes. His aunt Jabaska warns him that Pobble often lose their toes by the time they mature. She tells him that his toes have a chance of salvation if he keep his nose warm. The Pobble henceforth wears a red flannel scarf on his huge nose. He decided to go for a swim one day. The scarf is stolen by a dolphin before he swims to the supposed shore. When he gets out of the water, he discovers his toes have vanished. As the Pobble mourns his lost toes, he is flabbergasted on which creature of the deep many have taken them. A crawfish, or maybe a shrimp, or a mermaid. Basically, it is a story about properly taking care of one's thing, learning to get to go of things that are really not at all important, being obsessed with material things, accepting one's body image, about growing up and becoming an adult, the inevitable thing that may happen, fear of loss. I hope, class, you have enjoyed this recorded lesson. See you in the next class. Till then, Allah Hafiz and take care of yourself.